Why does back to school feel so much harder than it looks? It's literally the question so many families are asking themselves every single year. I mean, you buy the new supplies, you set the early alarms, and yet there's just this underlying heavy tension. Well, what we're looking at today isn't just a simple change in schedule. It's a hidden, massive systemic shock. For many autistic individuals, what looks to the outside world like typical back-to-school jitters is actually a profound transition that's impacting their entire nervous system.
Welcome to today's Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're here with us. Today, we're really breaking down the complex relationship between back-to-school transitions and executive functioning. We're going to focus specifically on how community partners, your local libraries, recreation centers, after-school programs, and businesses can better understand and actively support autistic individuals during this massive seasonal shift. It's a brilliant opportunity to bridge the gap between clinical understanding and everyday community life.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here's our structured roadmap for the Explainer so you know exactly where we're headed. We'll start with the hidden transition struggle, move into understanding executive functioning, explore stress in the nervous system, look at how community partners can help, and finally, wrap up with building inclusive communities.
Section 1. The hidden transition struggle, beyond school supplies and schedules.
So, we've got to look way beyond the fresh notebooks and pencils to completely reframe what we're actually seeing. When you observe nervousness, resistance, or forgetfulness during this season, it usually isn't defiance at all. It's an individual navigating a truly overwhelming transition. Think about it. On one hand, we have the summer routine. For many autistic individuals, summer represents a highly predictable, often self-managed environment. It just feels safe. But then, almost overnight, we switch to the school year routine. We're talking about suddenly different wake-up times, entirely new transportation schedules, a massive spike in social interactions, and significantly less recovery time. When you contrast these two routines, it becomes glaringly obvious why these changes feel so monumentally big.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what's happening beneath the surface. These changes bring compounding transition demands. We see a sudden influx of sensory input, huge spikes in social interactions, heavy new demands on memory and organization, and fundamental, ground-up routine changes. Now, each of these requires major adaptation on its own, but when they all happen simultaneously, the cognitive load just becomes incredibly heavy.
Section 2. Understanding executive functioning. It is context-dependent.
To really support autistic individuals in our communities, we have to grasp the clinical why behind the struggle. We need to firmly move away from the outdated, honestly harmful idea that these challenges are just a sign of laziness or lack of motivation. Let's get a clear, shared definition going. Executive functioning refers to the mental skills that help us plan, organize, prioritize, remember information, regulate our emotions, manage our time, initiate tasks, and adapt to change. Basically, the brain's management system. So when we talk about an individual struggling with a transition, these are the exact, specific skills that are being heavily taxed.
But here's something people get wrong all the time. Many just assume executive functioning is something you either have or you don't. In reality, executive functioning is absolutely not a fixed trait. It is highly dependent on context. Listen, just because an autistic child independently manages a predictable summer routine beautifully, it does not mean those exact same skills are immediately available when the massive expectations of the school year suddenly drop onto their shoulders.
To put this into real human terms, an autistic teen who successfully attends camp may find it difficult to adjust to crowded hallways and changing class schedules. This isn't a regression, right? This is a completely different set of environmental demands entirely overwhelming the nervous system. The context changed, so the available executive functioning changed right along with it.
Section 3. Stress and the nervous system. A polyvagal-informed perspective. So, the crucial point is this. To understand the physiological reasons behind these behavioral shifts, we look straight to polyvagal theory. The maxim here is simple but profound. Behavior is often communication from the nervous system. This is a real game changer for how we view things. When community partners see a behavior that looks like a struggle or resistance, polyvagal theory reminds us to view that not as a choice to be difficult, but as a direct physiological response from a completely overwhelmed nervous system. Let's contrast these two states for a second. When the nervous system actually feels safe and supported, things like learning, problem-solving, and social engagement become highly accessible. It flows. But on the flip side, when the nervous system experiences stress, uncertainty, or overwhelm, like, say, during the massive back-to-school transition, those high-level executive functioning skills we just talked about simply become less available.
And this clears up a major misconception we see all the time in community settings. The misconception is that skills automatically transfer from one environment to another. The reality? The environment actively influences performance. A child who easily follows a routine in the quiet of their own home might really struggle in a noisy, chaotic after-school program or a crowded community center. It doesn't mean they lost the skill, it just means the environment is currently blocking their access to it.
Section 4. How community partners help. 5 actionable ways to support.
Let's move to and see how this builds into real-world application. Now that we understand the clinical science, we can pivot to the how. Here are 5 actionable ways organizations like libraries, recreation centers, and local businesses can step up and support autistic individuals. We can create predictable environments, support sensory regulation, use clear communication, focus on strengths, and collaborate directly with families. Let's break a few of these down to see what they actually look like in practice.
First up, creating predictability. This is all about reducing that heavy cognitive load we mentioned earlier. You can do this easily in your community space by providing visual schedules, posting clear expectations so literally no one has to guess the rules, giving gentle routine reminders, ensuring transitions between activities are predictable, and, crucially, providing advance notice if something is going to change. For the nervous system, consistency equals safety.
We also know that back to school brings heightened sensory demands, so community partners absolutely must support sensory regulation. These are practical, real-world solutions you can implement. Offer a designated quiet space in your library or program. Provide flexible seating options. Reduce the environmental noise where you possibly can. Allow the use of sensory tools without any stigma attached, and always ensure there is clear, easy access to taking a break.
Underpinning all of these steps, the whole shebang, is the concept of neuro-affirming support. What this means is recognizing an individual's strengths while actively addressing challenges and reducing barriers to their overall success. It shifts the entire focus from trying to fix perceived deficits to simply asking, hey, what helps this person succeed, and how can we remove the barriers in our environment to make that happen?
Section 5. Building inclusive communities. Bridging care, connection, and community. All of these actionable steps connect back to one core, undeniable truth. Inclusive communities are not created through awareness alone. They are built through meaningful action. Awareness is great, but it's just the first step. Real inclusion requires active partnership, intentional environmental design, and ongoing, meaningful effort from all of us. Now, what's really interesting here is looking at a perfect real-world model for this kind of action. Upstate Carolina Autism Associates, or UCAA. They offer autism-informed mental health care that actively bridges clinical support right into community life. Through their NeuroConnect community events, they create spaces that support emotional regulation and build daily living skills in real, supportive environments, successfully connecting the therapy room to the broader community.
And this is exactly why that model matters so much, particularly for families across upstate South Carolina facing these stressful transitions. As the source notes, community connection is a critical part of mental health and long-term quality of life. The support individuals receive outside of school, in libraries, recreation programs, and local events matters deeply for their long-term outcomes and their overall sense of belonging.
So if you or your family are looking for this kind of autism-informed mental health support, or if you're a community partner wanting to learn more about inclusion, visit UpstateCarolinaAutismAssociates.com or call 864-835-8409 to learn more about their services and their NeuroConnect events in the upstate area.
As we wrap up today's explainer, I really want to leave you with one final provocative thought, based on everything we've uncovered about executive functioning, stress, and environmental barriers. What small change will you make today to help an autistic individual thrive in your community? Think about it, take action, and let's build environments where absolutely everyone has the opportunity to succeed. Thanks so much for joining me.